All right. So this will be a fairly informal live stream, hoping some people join so we can do some live chat Q&A. And once we get enough people here, I'm also going to give an update on my locals community and tell you what sort of plans I have for it coming up and the value that you can get out of it, which I hope will be something that people will see as worth it to become a supporter on locals. But right now, just sort of waiting to see if anyone joins. Yeah, so if you're watching this, go ahead and you can type in the chat. Just let us know where you're from if you wish, or just any questions you might have for me about theology or other things in general. And eventually, at some point when we get a good number of people, I'll give an update about locals and what I plan to do on there. So, got a couple people here. Feel free to say hello to everyone in the chat. From stormy Tennessee. Oh, I didn't know it was storming there today. I'm not far from Tennessee. I'm fairly close to Tennessee. Beautiful, beautiful state indeed. So welcome. Got anyone else here? I'm streaming from Fairview, North Carolina, just outside of Asheville. Let's see. Hopefully we can get a few more people in here. Sunday at 6 p.m. I don't know if it's the best time. It's always difficult to find times that work for most people. For those of you, I see there's at least 2 people in here. If you guys have any questions or topics you'd like me to talk about, feel free to offer suggestions in the live chat. Make sure you click live chat, not top chat, for those of you who are, I don't know why it defaults to top chat. That actually drives me insane. How does it know what a top chat is? Never quite understood that myself. Anyway, so might as well just go ahead and talk about locals for those that will be watching this after the fact. So I've started a locals community, and the way locals works, it has community tier levels based on how many supporters you have. So between 0 and 49, you're at a basic level, which means that you can do 5 live streams a month for 30 minutes each. So once you get to the next tier, after you get 50 supporters, then that bumps it up to 10 live streams a month for an hour each. On the basic tier, you can also upload videos up to 5 gigabytes per month. Once you hit the next tier, you get up to 15 gigabytes, so that triples. So what I'm trying to do is encourage people to sign up on locals so that I can get 50, so that my supporters can get more bang for the buck, if you will. I do plan to max out every month whatever I'm allotted. So right now I can do 5 live streams for 30 minutes. Once I hit 50, I'll do 10 live streams a month for an hour each, and upload as much video content as I can as well. Right now set at 5 gigabytes a month, and hoping to get that up to the next tier so I can do 15 gigabytes. Right now, the project I'm working on through Locals is going through Henri de Lubac's book, Catholicism. And we're doing a chapter a week on this right now. And the way that works is I upload videos on it, but if I start running out of video upload ability, then I'll use some of the live streams to do that week. Hopefully that won't happen this month. I'm hoping I can just do the chapters as uploads and then do additional live streams separately. Also, as a member, you can message me directly. Locals seems to recommend that you set a higher amount, so a monthly amount for the supporters in order to get access to messaging you. Right now, I'm just keeping it at the base cost. You can message me directly on there. You can also post your own comments and threads on Locals, and I want the community to try to interact with each other on there as well, so you get more out of the platform. It seems to be a good platform. Eventually, after we finish the Catholicism book, I'll start offering some other courses. So the plan will be, I've actually got a poll up with like 4 options right now. And I will be doing, I don't know which topic it'll be. I'm going to continue to get people voting on that poll to find out what I'll settle on, but it could be something like an introduction to Catholic systematic theology, where I kind of just give you a introductory course on the various subjects within systematic theology, and then kind of go through them and give you the, basic details. But I'll also plan to do courses on individual topics like Christology. So I'll give you sort of an introductory course of lectures on the history of Christology and the major elements of that. And that may also include some soteriology, which would be like theology of salvation. So I plan to do that at some point. I might do a course on ecclesiology. We'll see what people are interested in, and I'll try to adjust it accordingly. That's the plan. So please, do feel free to sign up and encourage others to do so, because the more people we get in the Locals community, the more you get out of it. And so, spread the word. But that having been said, are there any questions or topics you'd like me to discuss during this live stream? Okay. City of the Immaculata says, this may be the $1 million question, but what is de Lubac's take on nature and supernature? Why do neo-Thomists knock it? I've never spent any time with it. Yeah, that is the $1 million question. I've done some work on this. I wrote a doctoral seminar paper on it. And I've given interviews on this. Actually, at the Logos Project, I did a talk on this. So check that video out for a more lengthy discussion. I also did an interview related to it on the Catholic Culture podcast. And that was, I believe they titled that interview, Don't Scapegoat the Nouvelle Théologie. Personally, I don't like the term Nouvelle Théologie because it lumps people together that really aren't of the same mindset at all. But I discuss it there. I also have on this channel 2 videos dealing with it. One was a response to another YouTuber's video where they misrepresented de Lubac's position. So I set the record straight in that video, and then I did a subsequent follow-up video going more lengthy discussion on de Lubac's theology of nature and grace, or nature and supernature. But just to answer the question as briefly as I can, de Lubac, when he was still a student, was encouraged by one of his Jesuit formators to conduct a study of St. Thomas Aquinas' works to see if what the current neo-Thomist presentation of Aquinas' understanding of nature and grace was actually, in fact, Thomas's understanding of nature and grace. De Lubac concluded that it was not, and that it was had an inaccurate representation of Aquinas' thought. I was given an advanced copy of an article that we published through, I don't know, I think it'll be in a book, but it'll be an article in the book from a Thomist philosopher. And he gives a really good, and it's completely independent of DeClue. He's doing his own work here, but he basically comes to the same conclusion as DeClue, and it's one of the best things I've seen on that. I hope it does make it out into print and has a wide reading. Basically, I would summarize DeClue's understanding this way. Man has a natural desire for the beatific vision. Man cannot attain the beatific vision apart from grace. Nevertheless, God remains free in offering the grace required for the beatific vision. So those are the main components of his thought. And part of his concern is that he basically wants to argue that the beatific vision is man's sole final end, that there is no finality to human nature apart from the beatific vision of God in heaven. That is, God created us with that one end in mind. And therefore, as rational creatures, that is what we long for, even if we can't attain it under our own powers. The Neo-Thomists, following Cajetan, argued that based on an Aristotelian principle, that nature does nothing in vain, that destroys the gratuity of grace, and it also, because they basically argue you can't have an end, a nature can't have an end that it can't attain. It cannot have an end that it can't attain through its natural powers. So that's their basic argument against him. And they think it destroys the gratuity of grace, because they think that if God endows a creature with an end, then he must give it that end, or at least make that end possible for it in a concrete sense. So they say, well, if that were the case, then by nature, man would be owed grace, and that's what they're concerned with. DeClue thinks that's a misunderstanding of divine freedom. And even if you press the Neo-Thomists, they'll tell you that really the debitum naturae, the debt owed to nature, is more really something that God owes to himself to fulfill the wisdom of the creation he made. But in that case, I say, well, then I don't see why it's a problem. Did you happen to read David Bentley Hart's You Are Gods on Nature and Supernature? If so, do you have a take on his position? No, I have not. I have not read anything by David Bentley Hart. So I really can't speak to his position on that question. Nicholas of Cusa. Yeah, one of my professors, who's now at Duke, Peter Casarella, has done some work on Nicholas of Cusa. I have not, though, so I really can't speak much to that. The nature and grace question is a very complex one. I think there's good arguments on both sides. I tend to think that DeClue is more correct about his reading of Aquinas, and I also think he's perceiving something that's very important, and that I think he has a solid foundation in Aquinas. He also uses St. Robert Bellarmine to back up his position as well. So I think there's real grounding in the tradition for DeClue's understanding of nature and grace. So yeah, do you have any other questions or comments? Let's see. So yeah, you can check out those videos on nature and grace for a more full understanding. May strawman, but he says that neo-Thomists destroy nature with their views on grace. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read his book on that. I do think he might be onto something there. And the reality of it is nature comes from the supernatural, right? I mean, nature was created by the triune God and is ordered towards the triune God, and you can't really get around it. And DeClue wants to avoid giving the impression that somehow nature doesn't need grace to be perfected, that it can attain its perfection on its own. And this notion that therefore philosophy doesn't really need theology, nature doesn't really need grace, society doesn't really need religion. That's his concern. He's saying, no, in this world, there's one final end of man. It's a supernatural end. It's what we're longing for, and it's what we need. The Neo-Thomists, I think, they're not bad people by any stretch of the imagination. They're concerned that they want nature to mean something. And there is a distinction between nature and grace, right? That's why it's supernatural. But you also run the risk, if you push the independence or self-sufficiency of nature too much, you end up making grace really not the perfection of nature qua nature, nature as nature. And that becomes a problem. And then you're making grace something completely extrinsic to nature. And that's a concern if you push that side of it too much. So those are my initial thoughts on that. I might do something. I'm thinking about trying to write an article or a book on that topic at some point, but I'm not sure. It's been it's like beating a dead horse at this point. Yeah. Well, I love the Franciscans. I have St. Bonaventure is one of my favorite. My dog's name is Bonaventure. And so I have a tremendous love for the Franciscan tradition. I also love the Dominicans, though, and I'm a big fan of Aquinas, but I do have a special place in my heart for St. Bonaventure in the Franciscan tradition. So I agree with the Franciscans on a lot of points. I tend to like the priority of Christ position, that the incarnation would happen even without the fall. And I like the emphasis on love over truth or intellect. So that's awesome. Bonaventure converted you. So yeah, I mean, the locals group, I think, will be a good one if we can get enough people to come in. Yeah, it's $10 a month, and I know for some people that's difficult. But it's a couple cups of coffee, and you're getting a minimum of 5 30-minute live streams, hopefully eventually 10-hour-long live streams, plus 5 to 15 gigabytes of video uploads on other topics. So discussing, books or doing the courses. So I think it's well worth it. And again, the ability to message me directly with questions and comments, and that sort of thing. So, I'm hoping that people will see the value in the locals community. Hello, Haley. Good to see you here. The Universal Catholic YouTube mod always does great work. Yeah, that's fine, Haley. I didn't exactly give much of a heads up notice that I was doing this. So it's always good to have you here. We know you're busy. So no worries about being late. And so far, no inappropriate comments or anything that need to be dealt with. So you're good. But yeah, those are my plans for the locals community. And I hope it will be something people will take advantage of. There's a lot of noise on social media these days from people that aren't that educated in theology and philosophy, and a lot of bad stuff comes of that. And so I try to bring content with the backing of some academic credentials. And I'm not an academic elitist at all. I think there are people out there that do great work that don't have advanced degrees in theology or doctorates in theology. I mean, so I'm not saying it's all bad. There are some good platforms, but I think just given the cacophony of voices, especially ones that I think are actually dangerous for the Catholic faith under the pretext of being traditional, I think it is important to have good content. And I don't really get much into a lot of the news cycle stuff. I really want to try to offer good quality content that's more positive in the sense of presenting the Catholic faith for what it is, and not just talking about the negatives and contemporary problems. But I want it to be an avenue for people to learn about the faith, learn about theology, and really use that to inflame the heart and to get people to love the faith and theology more. So that's really my plan with the locals community. Let's see. Hey, Joe, good to see you on here. Yeah, I'm back, and for those of you who missed it, I started a locals community, and should be a link in the description of this live stream. Locals does limit what you can do until you get 50 subscriber or supporters. So I'm trying to get 50 supporters. Right now I have about 9. So right now I can only do 5 30-minute live streams on there, plus 5 gigabytes of upload videos. Once I hit the next tier at 50 supporters, then I can do 10 hour-long live streams plus 15 gigabytes of upload videos. Plus, through locals, you can message me directly, which is nice. I'm glad the video helped you, City of the Immaculata. Yeah, a lot of people, I think, there's a lot of negative feedback, but there was also a lot of positive feedback. I had people tell me that it really helped them, and that's why I did those. So, yeah. Good. I'm glad, Joe, that those helped you out. And I plan to do more stuff on locals. Like I said, right now we're going through DeClue's Catholicism book, 1 chapter a week. Today I uploaded the 5th chapter. So those of you who join locals now, all of those are available. They stay up there. Some of them are via live stream. Some of them are through via video uploads, but they're all available on the locals platform. And I'll be going through a chapter a week, and then also doing live stream videos. And I plan to start offering some entry-level courses on different topics as well. And you guys can actually vote for which topics that you are most interested in doing. Oh, I didn't know. City of the Immaculata did an aliens one. Interesting. I might have to check that out. Saw an interview. Was it with Paul Thigpen? I think wrote a book and did some interviews about that. And I think Jimmy Akin's done some stuff on that as well. Cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yeah. So I do encourage you all to try to join locals, get that community built up. I need to get 50 so we can have more content on there. Now, it is, just to be clear, this channel and my locals community are not connected whatsoever to my other employment. So that has nothing to do with them. It is my own content, completely independent. I don't work on it during work hours, so I do it nights and weekends. I work on stuff for that. Yeah, all right, good to see you, Joe. Glad you could hop on for a little bit. But one thing about locals, because it's a supporter platform, I'm hoping I can use it also to have discussions on topics that I'm still working through where I might not have come to a conclusion. So let's say there's a theological question out there and I'm trying to work through it. I'd like to use it as a way of sort of expressing my current thoughts on it and try to get feedback from the community on resources or thoughts they have regarding topics, something I probably wouldn't want to do on a more open platform like YouTube. So we can get into some things on there. I don't know who owns it, but I chose it mainly because Matt Fradd recommended it, and they're not really big on like censorship. They don't do that. They pretty much leave you alone. More free speech oriented, and you don't have to use a third party. You can upload. You can do your live streams directly through their platform. You don't have to use a different platform and then connect it. So it has a lot of built-in tools already. So he really pushed it, and he kind of convinced me to try Locals as the new platform. It's basically replacing, for the most part, my YouTube channel and my blog. So yeah, in addition to the upload videos and the live streams, I also post things occasionally. There's a couple articles I transferred over on there and edited and reworked. Also, if I do work elsewhere, I'll often post links to my work outside of that. So like, for instance, recently I published an article on the Catholic World Report, and that was entitled Making Common Cause, a Contribution to the Chap Minor Dialogue. So that you can go check that out on the Catholic World Report. I believe it came out last Monday. My sense of time's messed up. It was either last Monday or the Monday before, but it seems to have gotten good traction. Good one, Haley. So I also, just today, Word on Fire posted on their website my reflections on the Feast of Corpus Christi. I hope you check it out. Give some added reflections on the meaning of the Eucharist and its connection to the church, as well as why attending Mass or a divine liturgy at a place that's in full communion with Rome is important. So that's kind of towards the end of it, but feel free to check out that on there. So on the Solemnity of Corpus Christi, and then again, Catholic World Report really has a lot to do with trying to get communio theologians and Thomists to work together to combat the progressives and radical traditionalists, and have a sort of orthodox reclaiming the center and working together and not against one another, and also calling for Thomism to be a part of the Catholic higher education in more places, the way that Vatican II actually calls for. And I give a quote from Vatican II supporting that claim. So check that out as well. But yeah. So please do check out Locals. Good. I'm glad to hear it's City of the Immaculata. Oh, good to hear that, Ethan. Yeah, and we're doing videos on this, of course. Now, this book was actually very important to Pope Benedict XVI. He was given a copy of it in German translation, because it was originally written in French, of course. Hans Urs von Balthasar translated it into German. Ratzinger was given a copy of that by Alfred Lepla, and it completely helped form his understanding of the faith and theology as a whole. So it was a really important book for him. And I thought it would be fitting to start with this because the more I read through this, the more I do see themes in Ratzinger that have direct parallels in this book. And I have no doubt that this book is probably the proximate source for his thoughts on those issues. Yeah, it's a good community. The link should be in the description. Hopefully the links work. I know sometimes on YouTube I'll put a link in the description and it doesn't give you the hyperlink for some reason, but I hope it works this time. I'm not sure. If not, you can always copy and paste it, hopefully. But yeah, encourage you to, the more supporters we get on locals, the more I can actually do on locals. Again, right now I have about 9 supporters. I'm trying to get to 50 so I can be given access to doing more content on there, to bump the tier level on locals up. So spread the word, try to help get other people to join. That'd be good. Other than that, does anyone have any topics or questions they'd like to present? See if I can give some thoughts. For those of you who didn't see, the Joint International Commission for the Theological Dialogue between the Catholic Church and the Orthodox churches released a new document. I'm looking forward to reading it. Haven't gone through it yet. My STL thesis director, Monsignor Paul McPartlin, I believe is still on that commission. He was in the past when I was working with him on my STL thesis, which was on Catholic Orthodox perspectives, specifically Ratzinger and Zizioulas on the understanding papal primacy from a Eucharistic perspective. So I'm actually thinking about, that was really my love in theology at the time. My dissertation took another route, doing theology of revelation according to Ratzinger. But I want to get back into the Eucharistic ecclesiology and Catholic Orthodox stuff because that I really find fascinating. So I'm currently working on a second book, and once that's done, I'm considering writing another one on the papacy and the Eucharist. Because I really do think the key to reunion would be understanding the papacy from a Eucharistic perspective, Eucharistic understanding of the Church. I don't know if the Russians were involved this time or not, because I know they've walked out of prior meetings, which had nothing to do with the Catholics. It was actually over disputes within the Orthodox Church that they walked out before. So I'm not sure if they were present. Haven't had a chance to read the document either. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If the Russians aren't there, it's not because of us, because they were part of the dialogue before. They've always been invited. Unfortunately, their complaints ended up leading to a decision that left like the Scandinavian Orthodox churches out because they no longer qualified under the new rules. And the new rules were drafted as a way of trying to pacify the Russians, who were not happy about another Orthodox church being present as an autonomous church because they didn't recognize its autonomous status. And I think that's just sad that when the Orthodox can't even agree on the status of their own constituent churches, and it's completely that question is completely unrelated to the Catholic Orthodox dialogue, and yet they use it as an excuse to walk out and refuse to participate. I think that's really sad. And what does it matter if the Church of Estonia is present as an autonomous church or not? What does that have to do with talking about the theological issues at hand? I think it's just, yeah, I don't take delight in it either. It's just making things more complicated. The schisms going on within the Orthodox Church are really sad to me. So it's not, I do know that it's not just with the Greek Orthodox. I mean, it is the Eastern Orthodox in general that the dialogue takes place with. So the Russians have been a part of it in the past. Whether they were this time or not, I'm not sure. But unfortunately, the Russians are right now making it difficult on the Orthodox communion itself. So that tension between Constantinople and Moscow is real. and it's unfortunate and sad. But I will say this: I'm not saying the documents are perfect. Obviously, when you're trying to get Catholics and Orthodox to agree on statements, there's going to be things you can't say if you're trying to get both of them to sign off on it. But they have issued some great documents in the past, and this new one is the first one in since 2016. So it's been a long time since they've issued one. Um, so it's good that they finally did. Have any other questions or comments or topics that y'all would like to discuss, or even just say where you're from if you want, or just say hello to everyone in the chat. And again, I always encourage people, choose the live chat instead of the top chat. It annoys me that YouTube defaults to top chat. How on earth could it know what the top chat is? It has no way of verifying what the most important comments are. I think it's absurd. Yeah, I mean, the Russians have some great theologians, especially the ones that were in France. I mean, the Russian Orthodox in Paris have contributed heavily to theology and have even influenced the West. So they have some great thinkers for sure. So I hate to see all these squabbles within Orthodoxy itself. Any other comments or questions? Let's see, we've got about 6 people currently, I guess, watching live. Yeah, I mean, they're all great intellects, and there's always going to be things you disagree with people on, but you can still read them fruitfully. For one, I like Catholic Orthodox dialogue because I think it actually forces us to do our best work, precisely because we do have a shared early tradition. Um, it really does help us, I think. I mean, Catholic Orthodox dialogue, I think, sharpens Catholic theology um, in a way that some other dialogues might not quite um, do, just because of that shared history, and especially the shared patristic history. I don't have my own specific opinions on that. I just accept when the church makes decisions like this. I just assent to it. I don't even try to question it. But I do think there is some value in the idea that these are people that love Jesus, they love the Eucharist, they love the Blessed Mother, and they were willing to die for that. And um, obviously there's ecclesiology questions associated with that, but I don't think I think it's a little bit foolish to think, well, they can't be in heaven or they can't be saints because they didn't understand the need for communion with Rome the way we do. Like, I mean, obviously, I think we're right about that, and I do think it's a central and important issue. But I don't think that in of itself negates their martyrdom. I mean, they literally died for Christ and for the Eucharist and for our Blessed Mother and the Christian faith. And um, I, I think if I'm just trying to put myself in Jesus's shoes, the fact that they were mistaken about the other stuff, I don't think was. I mean, again, you can't judge individuals. It doesn't seem to be malicious. I would doubt that it's malicious, and they're willing to die for the faith, and I think that's noteworthy. Um, it's sad that we are separated, but they do have valid, apostolic succession and valid Eucharist. So, There's other issues with the Oriental Orthodox too, regarding Christology, of course, that are very complicated. Um, so, but I do think our understanding of faith has to be a proper one. It's possible for people who have the supernatural virtue of faith to be mistaken on certain topics. Just because someone is in error regarding something doesn't mean they lack supernatural faith. And I think, unfortunately, we can sometimes think that it does mean that automatically. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of Catholics that don't even understand the doctrine of Christology that we have. And, um, if you gave them a test, they might fail it on accurate Christology. Um, I don't think that's the gold standard. I mean, that's why we need authority, and that's why we need church unity, and it's why we need the papacy. It's precisely to keep those errors from happening. Um, yeah, yeah, that could be an interesting question. I've done a little bit of reading on different like non-Chalcedonian Christologies and stuff. It's not an area I've studied in depth, but that could be an interesting one. Yeah, I love the Alexandrian schools. If I had to choose between Alexandria and Antioch, I'd probably be an Alexandrian. Cyril is one reason. Athanasius is one of my favorite theologians. Um, I just kind of love their approach in general. So, any other questions, comments, topics? Again, I do encourage you all to check out my locals. Uh, well, some church leaders are speaking out. Um, why others aren't, I don't know. Um, it is sad. I was happy to see some MLB players, some of whom I kind of know. Not, I haven't met them personally, but I'm not going to get into how I know them, but um, that have spoken out. And I think that's great. Good Catholics standing up for truth. Um, and it would be nice to see more leaders speaking up. I know Bishop Barron spoke up against it. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Bishop Barron spoke out against what the Dodgers were doing in no uncertain terms. I thought that was really good. Um, Not enough excuses. I didn't give any excuses. I'm not sure who you're talking about. I think more should speak up against it. I do know there was something released by the Diocese of LA today where they actually give a link to where you can, or an address where you can send in your comments to the Dodgers directly. Um, that part was good. There's another part of the letter that was people found to be more disappointing. Um, but I do think it is a travesty. It's absolutely disgusting what they had it right the first time, which is to disinvite these people, and then to let them back in is a disgrace, and it shows that the anti-Catholic bias is still alive and well, and that's sad. I mean, I can't imagine this would be allowed if it was someone mocking another religion, but mocking us seems to be the one thing that you're still allowed to do, and it be considered socially acceptable. And it's not a small mockery, it's a huge mockery, and it's absolutely disgusting. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like I said, I think more leaders should be speaking out. There are some that are, and I applaud those, but it should be more unanimous. It should be every single bishop of the United States should be throwing a fit. um, you know I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't. you know um, so I agree with you on that. And it's in these dark times, we need the shepherds to fight against the wolves. That's what we need. We don't need politicians in office. We need shepherds. And unfortunately, there are some good ones, but we definitely could use more to stand up. Any other questions, comments, topics? Again, I do encourage people to check out my locals community, where I'll be doing live streams and video uploads, several a month, at least currently 5 live streams a month for half an hour each. Once I get 50 supporters, I'll do 10 hour-long live streams a month on there, plus the video uploads, trying to max out the allotted space given to me on locals, plus posting links to other articles and work that I do. And you can message me through the platform as well. Oh my. Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah, we need some strong voices. There's a lot of capitulating going on these days with our faith, and it's not good. But on locals, I'm going to be trying to do a lot of content to try to boost people's understanding of the faith and to love it more deeply. There's plenty of platforms right now that get into the what do you call it? Like current event stuff. I'll do some of that, I'm sure, but that's not going to be the focus. The focus will be on understanding our faith better and learning it and learning to love it more, and to see for me, one of my big leitmotifs is the unity of the faith and how the different parts of our faith all relate to one another. That's one of my big themes, so I try to do a lot on that. And that's a completely traditional way of doing it. I was reading some stuff by, where is it? I don't think I have it on my desk. I've got it upstairs, I think. But I've been reading through Dr. Meyer's translation of the volume he edited and then translated along with John Kerwin on the Thomistic Response to Nouvelle Théologie. And it's, they speak about that too. Like, part of the science of theology is allowing the different doctrines to illuminate each other. And you begin to see how one doctrine affects your understanding of another. So, yeah. Any other questions, comments? And again, right now we're going through Catholicism by DeClue, 1 chapter a week, and it was very influential on Ratzinger, Pope Benedict. So that's one reason I wanted to do it. And then once we're done with this book, we'll start doing some other courses and stuff on locals, and that should be a good value for y'all. For those of you who sign up for locals now, you'll already have access to the first 5 chapters that have already been posted. And then the rest of them will be coming out week by week. I'm trying to decide if next week I'll only do half of the next chapter because it's rather long. I think it's something like 60 pages or something. So I might split up chapter 6 on the interpretation of scripture into 2 weeks. I haven't decided yet. After I finish reading it, I'll decide if I want to do it as 1 or 2 weeks. And again, for those of you who haven't seen the Catholic World Report, I did an article on there recently, last week, um, dealing with trying to get communio and Thomist theologians to work together and to have a more balanced understanding of the council in relation to Thomism, arguing that it did actually call for Thomistic speculative theology to continue in the schools. So it was not in any way meant to be a repudiation or a tearing down of scholasticism. So that's part of the article. And then today I've got reflections on the Feast of Corpus Christi on Word on Fire. They published that today in honor of this feast day, and I hope you'll check that out as well. June has so many great feasts. It really is just a rich liturgical month. I don't have any current plans, but I am in conversation with Dom at the Logos Project regularly. So we have a lot of interaction with each other. I might try to bring him on this channel at some point as well. But there's nothing in the works currently. Unless I'm forgetting something. And if so, he needs to reach back out and let me know when I'm forgetting. Let's see. All right. Well, I don't know if there's any other questions, comments, topics for discussion you might have, or even just, letting us know where you're from, where you're watching from. Yep, Phil, that's a good one. So many good ones. This month is such a good month. Oh, cool. Actually, I'm not even sure where that is. I thought Old Dominion's a university, right? Let's see, Old Dominion. Is it actually a town? Oh, it's just a nickname for. Okay, got it. I used to live in Virginia Beach when I was about 4 years old. My dad was in the Navy. We were stationed there for a short time before we were shipped off to Groton, Connecticut. He was a submariner out of Groton. Has it really? I haven't been back since I was 4, so I have no idea what it's like now. I remember we were in a house. It was on Sandpiper Road, so I believe it was like you cross the street and another street, and the beach was right there, and the bay was literally like in our backyard. I love that house. Apparently, it was much smaller than I remember, but I still remember that house. I even remember it had some sort of like poster or picture with like all the different kinds of whales on the wall, and I love that. It's a good one, Phil. Well, I'm sad to hear that Virginia Beach has gone downhill because I really liked it growing up. I mean, it was a very short period of time, but I have very fond memories of that house and that location, right there on the Sandpiper Road. But it was less than a full year, so it wasn't a huge part of my life, but it was a fond one for me. For those of you joining late, again, I encourage you to click the link in the description for my locals community that I've started, we'll be doing a lot of live streams and video uploads and other content on there. And I'm trying to get to 50 supporters. So please consider supporting me on there, because once I hit 50, it unlocks my ability to upload more content on there, because locals has your community based on a tier level, and the next tier is when I hit 50 supporters. So please do consider joining. You should be getting a good bang for your buck out of it. Doing a lot of content on there. So let's see. Any other comments, questions, topics you'd like to see videos on? Always open to suggestions for things to cover. Appreciate y'all coming out. No, I did not watch the new one, and I'm really upset because I've been looking forward to this movie, and now I can't watch it from what I've heard. So I'm really disappointed. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, but given what I heard, I cannot in good conscience watch that. So it's very disappointing to me. It's such a shame because it had such great potential to be a very impactful movie for a lot of people. And I hope that God can bring some good out of it, for those that do watch it. But no, I can't, not with what I know of what they put in there. And it's heartbreaking because it could have been really good, and there's no reason they had to include those things in there. And it's just it's really upsetting. It really is. There's no need for this. I mean, they should have been smarter about that. And unfortunately, they didn't have prudence. No, I don't know anything about that, Charlie. The name sounds familiar, but no, I have not read that. No, I have no idea. I don't know what he says about that. I mean, there's obviously a relationship between the Last Supper and the sacrifice on Calvary. He's basically instituting the Eucharist as a participation in that sacrifice the night before it happened. So there's definitely a link there. I don't know what his comments are about it. I know I keep saying this, but as I see people join the stream, I'll just keep reiterating it. Please consider supporting me on Locals. We get a lot of content on there. I'll be maxing out the available live streams that it allows and uploading other videos. You can also send me direct messages on there. So trying to get to 50 supporters is the goal, because that unlocks, that will, let's see, I think it quadruples my live stream content, because it goes from 5 half hours to 10 1 hours. And then it also triples my upload availability from 5 to 15 gigabytes a month. So should do a show about fake apparitions, UFO, show on that subject with warn Catholics about such nonsense going around. I'm not going to do that because it's not my area. I actually am interested in watching stuff on that, but I'm not going to be doing a dive into that myself. I know some other Catholics have done videos on that kind of thing, and I'll leave that to them. You know, You gotta keep in mind, I do have a doctorate in systematic theology, and I take that seriously, but it also means that I try to focus my content on Catholic theology specific, like that I've studied, and it's just not a topic that comes up in the academy. So I don't want to just preemptively jump in there and spout off on that topic. I like to do things that I've studied and researched and written on and taught. Um, so I do have some concerns about what's going on. I think we do have to be leery of um, disinformation coming from sources as a way of pushing other agendas, and I think that's something we should always be cautious of. I'll just leave it at that. But I'm not really interested in doing that as a topic for my channel or locals. But I'd welcome people to discuss it on locals if they want to join and support and do posts and have dialogues about it. Because that's one thing about locals I like too, is that the members and the supporters can actually interact with one another. So to be a supporter, you have to be a supporter to comment on any of the videos, and actually you have to be a supporter to watch most of them. I think you get like a minute or minute and a half if you're just a member. So like lets you see the first 90 seconds or so. But the full videos I upload there are for supporters only. The small letters. I must be missing something, Phil. Is that a reference to something above? You talking about the fact that I'm squinting trying to read this stuff? My grandparents used to have one of those. It was like a little, yeah, it was like a little curved on the top, flat on the bottom. You could put it over books or newspapers and read it. I remember that. It was kind of cool. Yeah. Well, let's see. Any other comments, questions, topics for discussion? So let's see. I believe, let's see, where is it? Maybe it's weird. Let's see on here. Yeah, we're all getting old, Phil. I feel you on that one. Anyway, if there's more comments, questions, I'm happy to interact. If not, we can end the stream. The puppy Bonaventure's in here, wanting interaction. He unfortunately got aspirational pneumonia earlier this week, and for a while there, we didn't know if he was going to survive. But he seems to be on the mend, so I'm happy about that. Hey, puppy. My screen locked up for some reason. I'm trying to show people my puppy dog. He looks a little weird right now because we couldn't keep up with the mats, and so we had to shave him down. And so he looks a little bit weird right now. Usually he's much more full coat, but he's doing better. Aren't you, puppy baby? Yeah, he's my sweet puppy. Probably need to feed him soon. So if no more comments or questions, then thank you for joining. And please do consider becoming a local supporter. I appreciate it. And have a good night. And God bless.